If you have a baby that cries unconsolably for hours on end, you know how exhausting and how miserable and how challenging that experience can be. In fact, I don't know that there's anything more frustrating and more draining as a parent than having your kid be struggling and suffering but not knowing what to do to help. So we call that colic, right? It's kind of this amorphous, vague term that means you've got a baby that is fussy, they're upset, they're dealing with some sort of challenge. But ultimately, as a parent, it really just leaves you feeling helpless, right? You don't know what to do. You've tried all these different things, but they're stuck and they're struggling. So what do? This is an example of a challenge that I would say is very, very common, right? 1 in 4, 25% of kids are dealing with colic-like symptoms. It's incredibly common, but it is not normal. This is not something that some babies just have and some don't. You just got a cranky baby, or you got lucky, you have a nice calm baby. That is not the case at all. We need to start unpacking what is really happening when you've got a stressed out, colicky kid, because there are options to help if you're asking the right questions and looking to truly address the cause. So if you are looking for relief, if this is you, parents, if you're hearing that and being like, oh my gosh, that's my life, right? I just talking to a parent this morning that they said their baby, the way they put it was they invented colic, right? They were the definition of it. If you feel like that's you, if your baby invented colic, this video is for you, because I want to walk through what can you do to help? What can you do to actually address the cause, get to the why of why a child is struggling? And there's a piece of this that you might not realize. You're probably told they'll grow out of it. It won't last forever. Just hang in there. And yes, that is true. But they don't grow out of colic. They just grow into the next challenge, right? We see the kids that start with that colicky start to life have way more struggles down the road. So don't just ignore it and hold on for dear life for a couple of months. You got to really address the true issue here. So what is going on? This is an issue we see kids do so well with chiropractic. And we probably this week, as you're looking through this video, or as you're watching this video, go back to some of our posts. We'll probably share a couple of those stories where we have kids doing amazing with these types of challenges. And it's because we're looking at them through a neurological lens. That's what we need to do. At Thrive, we look at everything through that nervous system focused approach. Because if we realize what's happening in a little baby's nervous system, we can really get to the bottom of it. So specifically with colic, it's going to be dysregulation of what's called your autonomic nervous system, or your ANS. Your ANS controls your sleep, your digestion, your relaxation, really everything that you think of when you think of a fussy, colicky baby. It is regulated through what's called the parasympathetic or sympathetic tone. You'll hear us call the gas pedal or the brake pedal, right? It's easier to say than those fancy sciencey words. So that gas versus brake balance, a kid in stress, fight or flight, and survival versus a balanced growth and development focused state, that is colic, right? Baby life is supposed to be boring. Eating, sleeping, pooping, that's it, right? A little bit down the road, you get into movement, some motor control. Baby life should be simple. When that ANS balance, when that gas versus brake continuum gets skewed into stress, that's when we have symptoms show up like tension, fussiness, hard to sleep, hard to soothe. You can't really ever figure out why they're upset because it's internal. It's not they need fed. It's not they need change. It's not something you can meet if they have this internal fight or flight response that's kicked on and has them dealing with all of those other symptoms. So next question that you're probably thinking, parents, because you are good, astute listeners, is, well, what the heck would cause that? Why might a kid have this autonomic nervous system imbalance? Why might they be more in gas pedal? A couple key triggers that can push them into that in this early life phase. One is prenatal stress, right? In utero, if mom is experiencing a lot of stressful events, that's going to affect the baby, right? That is going to hardwire their nervous system for stress. Next big piece of that, and that could be not just stress on mom, that could be physical in utero constraint too, right? Maybe just the way baby's positioned in the womb, maybe that process of going through pregnancy creates some physical torsion and tension in their system. So that's a big piece of it. But then the birth process is probably the most missed one, right? I don't think enough people are talking about how much your birth impacts life. Specifically, if you have a C-section, forceps, vacuum extraction, or just manual, hands-on, pulling, turning, twisting at that head and neck. In fact, the family I just talked to this morning, that was birth, right? They said it got stuck, had a lot of force pulling at that really sensitive, really important head and neck region, right? You would never let me, even feels weird for a baby doll, to hold them by their head, right? We know that's not okay for kids. They have these giant heads and these fragile little bodies that they can't protect yet. They can't hold their own head up. We can't be using that as a lever to pull babies out. that creates a lot of torsion and damage in that spine and specifically brainstem cranial region of their body. That is the primary area your body's brake pedal comes from. Very top of the neck here, there's a nerve called the vagus nerve, which runs that growth, development, rest, relaxation, digestion, sleep, all of the anti-colic things. That's coming from that vagus nerve. So if that gets affected at birth, we have a whole downstream cascade of events. So prenatal stress, birth trauma, and then environmental stresses, environmental toxic exposure can be a big piece of that too. That can be early antibiotic use. That could be just something they were exposed to in their environment. So all of those different factors can contribute to a kid who is stuck more in gas pedal. And there's more things to it, right? If they have an awesome, loving breastfeeding relationship, if they have maybe some genetic positive composition that maybe they can adapt to that more. Maybe some kids can handle it a little bit better. But what we see for way too many of them is that stress response pushes them into survival mode and they get stuck there. And that shows up not just as the colic, but then as all these other future challenges too, right? The kid that grows up and now they have ear infections. And then they've got motor and speech delays or allergies and eczema. Even to when we get to that school age, sensory, emotional dysregulation, ADHD, dyslexia, autism spectrum challenges, we see a golden thread connecting those where oftentimes it starts in that early phase and they were a colicky, refluxy, constipated, poorly latching, feeding baby too. So this isn't something I just want you to hope they grow out of or get through eventually. You've got to address it differently and you've got to start focusing on the nervous system, right? With that neuro-focused lens, you're going to get to the root cause. You're going to balance out that stress response and allow that kid to get back on that growth and development trajectory. Because that's what an adjustment is. Corrects that early stress and damage, pumps the brakes, gets that autonomic balance back in check where it should be so that the kid can start sleeping better, they can start pooping again, they can latch and feed better, and all those other challenges are history. So take action on this, one, because you gotta hang in there and make it through the day. But even if you could survive a month or 2 or 3 months or however long it's gonna be with a fussy baby, you're not helping them long term. They're just gonna deal with the next iteration of this same issue. So don't just wait and see. Don't feel like you got no options or choices. Ask the right questions, address the cause, get to that neurological root, and you'll get a whole different set of results and impact for your kid. And that's where you've probably heard us talk about the scans, the technology, our neurological assessment at Thrive. That's what it's for. It's so you don't have to guess at what's going on with your kid's health. You can actually measure it and track it objectively. Guys, I hope that helps. Parents, if you were dealing with a baby with colic, please reach out. We're here to help. We want to make sure that your kid is like so many of the ones that we've helped in that phase of life. Get out of the immediate challenge, but also make sure that future path that they're on is towards optimal health and wellness.